Hello and greetings. This video is a Game Master's Guide of Episode 5 of the Traveler campaign, Secrets of the Ancients. This video is the 6th video in a series of 11 videos. I would recommend watching the first 5 videos before this one. Welcome to the RPGmodsFan spaceship. I am Peaches, and I will be your guide through the 5th episode/adventure of the Traveler, Secrets of the Ancients campaign. As a reminder, in the Traveler RPG system, the Game Master is called the referee. However, I will refer to them as the Game Master, or as the GM, instead. I will now discuss the episode/adventure itself, and this video will contain spoilers. Unless you are a Game Master who will be running this adventure for their players, or are a player who already played through this adventure, and are watching this video for nostalgia purposes, I would suggest not to watch the rest of this video. Previously on Secrets of the Ancients. The travelers discovered an ancient starship hidden in the atmosphere of Komesh, a Jupiter-sized gas giant. After finding their way to the bridge, they have the ship ascend above Komesh's atmosphere, where, in high orbit, the Alahir, a military ship commanded by Imperial Intelligence Agent Gand Holses, is waiting for them. Then Seven, in the form of a gigantic ancient warship, jumps in and destroys the Alahir. Fearing for their lives, the travelers have their ancient ship jump into jump space. When they emerge, on its own accord, the ancient ship plunges into a huge teleportation portal that was floating in a parsec of empty space. The 5th episode/adventure of the Secrets of the Ancients campaign is simply titled Otherworld. The adventure's synopsis would be as follows. The travelers enter into Grandfather's pocket universe, explore it, cross paths with various experiments of Grandfather, and then meet with Grandfather, himself, an ancient droid. I would summarize the adventure as follows. In order to flee from Seven, an ancient being and warship, the ancient ship the travelers are on slips through a teleportation portal that leads to Grandfather's pocket universe. They land and disembark at a starport, and then they explore the habitats that are accessible from the starport. The travelers' arrival has reactivated the teleport network, allowing the various habitats to interact. They encounter the descendants of Grandfather's various old experiments. Eventually, the travelers find a transportation hub, deal with a custodian robot, before they finally have access to it. It is at this point the travelers realize they are inside a pocket universe containing 3 star systems. The robot takes them to the core world for an audience with Grandfather. However, he is busy building a, supposedly, superweapon and does not have much time to chat with the travelers. For his son, Seven, is currently trying to break through the same portal the travelers came through. Most of the non-player characters the travelers will interact with are minor. The important ones are Grandfather and Seven, who are driving the plot from behind the scenes. In the first video of this series, I have already discussed the ancient being, a droid, named Grandfather Yaskoidre. I would watch that video, as well as all the other videos, before this one. Grandfather lives in a pocket universe, which he created more than 300,000 years ago. The pocket universe is 3 parsecs across and contains 3 separate star systems, which he initially ripped out from the traveler's universe. At the end of this adventure, the travelers will get to meet Grandfather himself. Likewise, I have already discussed the ancient being, named Seven, who is one of Grandfather's sons. Seven's robotic body is that of a huge ancient warship. At the beginning of the adventure, Seven is trying to break through the portal that leads into Grandfather's pocket universe. Within about a week, he will succeed in doing so. If the travelers tarry too long in one of the sections of this adventure, and Seven breaks through, then Seven jumps immediately for Grandfather's world. The hostile ancient has little interest in the travelers or Grandfather's abandoned experiments. I will now go through the episode/adventure's timeline of events. My apologies, in advance. I will be repeating some things I have already mentioned before. More than 300,000 years ago, Grandfather creates a pocket universe. It contains 3 star systems arranged in a triangular configuration, which he originally ripped out from the regular universe. The stars he took were from the Regina subsector of the Spinward Marches subsector of the Milky Way galaxy. The pocket universe is a little more than 3 parsecs in diameter, and it folds back on itself from a higher dimensional perspective. Because light from the 3 stars has been traveling in a 4-dimensional circle in all directions for eons, space is no longer black, but has a faint starglow. Grandfather uses one of the star systems for his ongoing activities. In the second star system are Droin, who are loyal to Grandfather. He has kept this group of Droin in his pocket universe as a hedge against the future. At some time in the future, should Grandfather need Droin for breeding purposes, experimentation, colonization, or even as soldiers, he has a ready supply available. The third star system is a graveyard of old experiments, outdated equipment, and other junk. Anything Grandfather has previously experimented with, but is no longer interested in, gets dumped here. In the first 250,000 years after the creation of the pocket universe, via portals, Grandfather made infrequent trips out, visiting many former Droin worlds ravaged or destroyed by the final war. He also struck at the works and power bases of his few surviving sons. Eventually, voyages out of the pocket universe became too dangerous. His other surviving sons were drawing ever closer to discovering his refuge, and he has been hiding ever since. The travelers are on board one of Grandfather's ancient ships. His renegade son, Seven, has traced the travelers' jump trajectory to Grandfather's portal that allowed entry of Grandfather's ancient ship. Seven lacks the code keys to activate the portal, but it is only a matter of time, about a week specifically, before Seven will break through into Grandfather's pocket universe, and the war between Grandfather and his offspring will continue. Meanwhile, inside the pocket universe, the ancient ship will bring the travelers to a planet within the third star system, which is the graveyard of Grandfather's old experiments. As it descends, its capsules are detaching and landing in different locations. If the Star Hunter is still functional, then a trio of spherical drones fly up to it, lift it out of the ancient ship, and carry it over the horizon to the ship graveyard outside the starport. The travelers may be able to retrieve their ship in the 7th episode of the campaign. The capsule the travelers are in, along with the remainder of the ancient ship, lands at a starport that is now abandoned. They are the first visitors in 50,000 years. A map of the abandoned ancient starport would have been nice, but the book does not provide one. Anyway, a graveyard of wrecked spaceships stretches for kilometers around the central starport structure. Most of the ships are ancient in design and look similar to the ancient ship the travelers were on. There are some trader and courier ships from the First Imperium, Soleimani, Aslan, and Jodani states. The ships are all non-functional, gutted hulks. Useful components and parts have been stripped. There are no useful relics here, no salvage to be stolen, just the tombs of starfaring giants. The travelers are not alone in the starship graveyard. When pieces of their ship landed, disassembly robots were automatically activated for the first time in thousands of years. The robots' purpose is to disable any ships that land. If the Star Hunter is still intact, then the robots intend to disable her too. They are programmed to ignore living beings, under most circumstances. To reach the central chamber of the starport, the travelers need to pass through 3 airlocks. Airlock 1 is a bioscanner that determines the biological needs of the organisms in it and adjusts the atmosphere in the next few rooms to compensate. Airlock 2 scans for equipment. Any weapons are disabled. Airlock 3 leads to the transit system. Scanners in the airlock will not recognize the genetic makeup of the travelers. A hologram of 7 habitats appears, and all are flashing red, since the scanners cannot find a habitat deemed suitable for the travelers. Hence, the travelers will need to force the doors open in order to proceed. At the center of the starport is a circular chamber, which has a huge teleporter in the middle of it. The teleporter leads to 6 different habitats. Likewise, at the center of each habitat is another teleporter. Each of these teleporters are housed within a small citadel. Currently, the starport teleporter is set to teleport to Habitat 0. Once they leave, the travelers can no longer use the teleport network to return to the starport. Also, teleport to Habitat 6 is locked out. To get to Habitat 6, the travelers will need to go cross-country to get to it. Each habitat contains experiments that were conducted by Grandfather. Natural barriers of various kinds, such as rivers, thick forests, or treacherous mountains, divide most of the habitats from each other. Each habitat was engineered to be as pleasant and self-sustaining as possible. The plants and animals are mostly descendants of Earth flora and fauna. Habitat 0 has the Illimdaki. The Illimdaki are a new subrace of humanitai, created by Grandfather, who are basically pre-industrial age farmers. Habitat 1 has a cloning facility for producing new batches of experimental subjects. Habitat 2 has a new subrace of Varga, called the Hunters, who are more feral and dangerous than regular Varga. Habitat 3 is dominated by the Hungry Swamp, which is a living weapons system made to erase failed experiments. Habitat 4 is the Graveyard. Although it looks like a wasteland of junked experiments and spare parts, in reality, Habitat 4 serves as a recycling facility. Habitat 5 is the Death Zone, a forest of incredibly hostile creatures, both plant and animal. Within Habitat 6 resides the Custodian, a droid robot assigned to oversee these habitats. Before the travelers' arrival, the teleport network has been inactive for thousands of years. The teleport network becomes active when the travelers first use it. When they do, the Protovarga hunters of Habitat 2 will also start using the teleport network. The travelers may encounter the hunters in any of the habitats. When the hunters reach Habitat 0 and the travelers do not intervene, then the hunters will wipe out the Illimdaki. Up in the sky, the travelers will see a new blue star appear, which grows as the adventure progresses. This new star is the visible effects of the ancient being Seven, trying to break into Grandfather's pocket universe. Given that the travelers are at least 1 parsec away, then this light should have been traveling for at least 3 years. Hence, from a scientific perspective, this is a major plot hole for the adventure. Anyway, depending on which habitats the travelers teleport and/or cross-country to, the next 6 events can occur in any order. So, for the first time, this campaign has a sandbox adventure instead of a railroad adventure. The sourcebook assumes the travelers will travel to habitats in the following order. First the Illimdaki, then the Maker, next the Hunters, then the Hungry Swamp, next the Graveyard, then the Death Zone, where the travelers need to traverse before reaching the Custodian. In the Illimdaki habitat, the teleport citadel is located on a hilltop in the middle of well-kept farmlands. The travelers will see small villages and spot human figures toiling in the fields. The Illimdaki are a subspecies of humans created by Grandfather. Grandfather wanted servants who had the technical skills to obey his commands and aid in his research. They are gifted with genetic memory. Each is born with an encyclopedic knowledge of physics, chemistry, engineering, and other sciences. However, they are nearly incapable of innovation or imagination. In terms of traveler characteristics, they have an odd combination of having a very high education score, yet a very low intelligence score. They are capable of understanding concepts and technologies up to tech level 16, yet live and farm at technology level 3. To protect them from the hunters, the Illimdaki have built 8-meter tall stone walls that surrounds their whole habitat. The habitat currently has a population of 50,000 Illimdaki. Within the habitat is the small city of Yas, which serves as the Illimdaki's capital. The first Illumidaki the travelers meet will be a young farmer named Ashur. Upon seeing him, the travelers may think he seems technologically primitive, yet he will be unimpressed with any supposed displays of technological marvel. If asked the cliché question of, "Take me to your leader," he will take the travelers to the city of Yas in his steam car and escort them to Queen Nalu. Queen Nalu greets the travelers and asks where they came from. At first, she and her vizier, Urka, will assume they are fresh clones sent by the Maker. Queen Nalu cares for her people and will do anything to protect them against the hunters. She can see that the travelers have vastly more imagination than any of her subjects, including her vizier, Urka, who now will feel politically threatened by the travelers. The Illuminati have a vague idea of the contents of the other habitats. They are also aware of the existence of the interstellar transit hub, but have no idea where it is. As a game master, I would have the Queen ask for the travelers' help in preparing for an invasion by the hunters. The Illuminati have rifles, equivalent to those of the 16th century. They can make more advanced weaponry and equipment, but will need access to resources, which can be found in Habitat 4, the Graveyard Habitat. The Game Master can have the hunters arrive via the teleporter network at a suitable dramatic juncture. If the travelers do nothing to help, then the Illuminati will be wiped out by the hunters. In the Maker Habitat, the teleport citadel is located in an open meadow. Shortly after the travelers arrive, buzzing, mosquito-sized, metal insects swarm around them. A close examination of an insect shows it is a tiny metal robot and not a natural creature. If the characters are not wearing full-body protective gear, like vac suits, these robots land on exposed skin and take blood samples of each of the travelers. They then fly into an underground complex, which is a short distance away. And yet again, the sourcebook does not provide a map of the complex. Within the underground structure is a huge cloning machine. Whenever the primal Varga hunters wipe out the Illuminati, the cloning machine then produces replacements. If any of the travelers were bitten, then a clone of them will be incubating within the facility, and, if need be, can be used as a replacement character. An Illuminati priest, named Shi-Din, watches over the cloning machine. Eons ago, Grandfather took wolves from Earth and engineered the Varga race from their DNA. The creatures called the Hunters are another form of Varga. The Hunters of Men habitat is a war-torn wilderness. Once the teleport network is reactivated, the Hunters will soon work out what it is and how to use it. There will be dozens of hunters around the teleporter, waiting for victims to come through the portal. The hunters look at the travelers as potential meals, but they are intelligent. Thus the travelers can be able to converse with them. In the Hungry Swamp habitat, the teleport citadel is located on a small island in the swamp. The Hungry Swamp is highly acidic and is a fetid, yellow-tinged mire, stretching for as far as the characters can see. The fog that hangs above the swamp burns the characters' skin and eyes. The habitat's purpose is to dispose of Grandfather's failed experiments. Lurking in the depths of the swamp are amphibious, 4-meter-long, squid-like monsters. In the Graveyard habitat, the teleport citadel is located on a rise, overlooking the place. The graveyard is a recycling facility for Grandfather's abandoned experiments. It is a desert of bleached white sand, with strange machines and relics that poke like the bones out of the dunes. Within the desert are a partially demolished cloning facility, an insane AI contained in a pyramidal structure, gravity field generators housed in scattered silvery metallic bars, a telepathic pillar made of white metal, a dimensional fold that looks like a block of green matter, and a scattering of small black disks, each surrounded by energy-draining null zones. Also, spare parts and salvageable equipment can be found. In addition, darting about in the graveyard are scavenger drones that resemble huge metallic dung beetles. The Death Zone habitat resembles an overgrown jungle containing a selection of extremely dangerous plants and animal species. The air here is noticeably thicker, with a higher level of oxygen content. The travelers will need to traverse the Death Zone in order to get to the Custodian habitat. On the far side of the Death Zone is a white stone tower. The only visible entrance is via a ledge 5 meters above ground level. As the travelers approach the tower, a robotic drone emerges and glides down towards them. To the travelers, this robot looks indistinguishable from a living drone. This is the Custodian. Initially, the Custodian assumes the characters are escaped Illuminati. Once the travelers convince the Custodian that they are from outside the Pocket Universe, the Custodian will then take them to the Interstellar Transit Hub. The travelers are then flung through jump space to Grandfather's realm. The travelers materialize on a space station orbiting a silver world, a globe-spanning city machine, 300,000 years in the making. The space station is still under construction, its technologies are eons beyond the comprehension of the travelers. However, intuitively, they sense the station is a weapon. A trio of robot droids surround the travelers and escort them to Grandfather. Grandfather Yaskoidre floats 3 meters off the ground in a green sphere of energy. Whether the travelers have psionics or not, all of them can sense Grandfather's tremendous psychic power. Grandfather greets the travelers, then telepathically projects an image of Seven breaking through the dimensional portal into the pocket universe. For this adventure, the sourcebook only provides one map, and that is of the habitats on the abandoned world in Grandfather's pocket universe. Now, displayed on the screen, is a color version of the habitats map. The most infuriating thing about the Secrets of the Ancients campaign book is that it hardly provides any maps for the Game Master to use. However, because this episode is less railroady and gives the player characters some agency in their decisions and choices, to me, this is one of the better adventures in the Secrets of the Ancients campaign. If you have any ideas on how to make this adventure even better, please share them in the comments below. Next week, I will provide a walkthrough of the next episode, Secret of the Ancients. Thank you for watching, from all of us at the RPGmodsFan spaceship. Hope this video has been informative and entertaining. Please subscribe, like, share, and comment. We do like feedback, and we try to respond to as many comments as we can. Till next time, on behalf of RPGmodsFan, I am Peaches, saying cheers, have a good day, and goodbye.